Alright, hey, what's up YouTube? I got a 1999 SV650 here. Purchased it used. I noticed it had rust in the tank. Didn't run very well. Run at all, really. Barely ran. And so I went to clean the rust out of the tank, and when I took the fuel level sensor off out of the bottom of the tank, I recognized that it came out in pieces. Different pieces were rattling around inside. The upper and lower level sensors had broken off the stock, or carrier, or cradle, whatever you want to call it. This bit here, and I was attempting to fix it. I googled it up and saw Brian Blank's great video on fixing this for $7 Australian. I was pretty excited about that. But when I went to replicate that, I came across one thing I thought I would like to share with you guys. Specifically, when I turn the key on, the low fuel light is always on, no matter what I did. I couldn't get that light to turn off. So I did some digging, and I found both an SV rider thread, which I'll link to in the description below, and a page in the service manual under the electrical chapter for testing the indicator lights on the dashboard, that you need to disconnect the oil pressure lead line. Coupler, they call it, and it's right here on the right hand side of the bike. It's a little white connector, a single wire. So if you disconnect that, then you can test this fuel level system without having to have the bike running. I think Brian must have done that, but he forgot to mention it or didn't mention it. Maybe his bike's different, I don't know. Now with that disconnected, we can take the plug here, and I can jumper. This is also described in the service manual. You can if you short out or connect the two of the wires, the red with black trace, black stripe, and the white or the black wire with a white stripe, you can see that the fuel light starts to flash. And I have a little clock here because as soon as you disconnect this, it doesn't just stop automatically. It takes like 30 seconds or so for the light to stop flashing. I'm not sure what the electronics are in the system. There we go, turned off just a little bit. Right around 30 seconds. You can also jumper both sides, both sets of wires, so there's 3 wires. Like I mentioned, there's a red and black, and black and white, that's a ground. And there's another hot wire that is green, black and green. And if you connect all of the wire, if the 2 hot wires get connected to the ground, you can see the light turns solid. So in the SV, that will be very low fuel, is the idea. And again, if you disconnect them, it'll take 30 seconds or so for the system to sort of reset, I guess. Alright, there we go, 25 seconds or so. So that shows that the wire connector here and all the way up to the dashboard is working as expected. So I'm going to do basically the same test with the fuel level sensor in place, connected in, just to prove that the wiring going through the unit all is intact as well. I had started to repair it off of Brian's description or video before I decided to make my own video. So anyways, you'll have to ignore some of this, but this on the stock here, coming through the base of it, there are 2 leads. One is for the upper sensor, one is for the lower sensor, and this tan wire was the only thing left that still connected in mine. And it was pretty obvious that that was the upper level sensor. So if I take that wire and I've measured that it still has voltage coming through the base of the unit with the connector plugged in, if I connect that or touch that to the stock, which is the ground, you can see the light starts to flash on the dashboard, just like we'd hope. And if I connect or touch the other lead to the side of the unit, you see it goes solid. If I can do that correctly, there we go. Light goes solid if I connect those 2. Alright, so all the circuits are working intact through the base of the sensor. Alright, I'm going to hit start on that. That'll give us an indicator when we can stop waiting for that thing to stop flashing. And there you go, light's flashing. The light will go out here in a second. There we go. We figured out that it was all clear. One other thing I wanted to show was this thing called a resistance substitution box. So it's a little device I got off Amazon, and it's pretty straightforward. I don't know the best way to set it in here, but the idea is you can use it to change or to alter the resistance in a circuit. So I'm going to just hook the black wire, in this case, up to the stock, the ground. And then what I want to demonstrate with this is that when we connected the wire straight, it goes to 0 resistance, right? And when you have them disconnected, it's infinite resistance. It's not connected at all. So what I wanted to use this substitution box for is to determine if the 250 mark that Brian had mentioned that he used two 500 ohm resistors or thermistors in parallel. I wanted to just double check that on my bike. And with this little box, we can easily tell. So if we flip the switches for 200 up to and the 40 and the 10, that gives us 250. And if I connect the lead on the box to that, you can see the light does not flash. So with the resistance of 250 ohms, the circuit is not complete enough for the light to light. With this device here, you can quickly change, easily change out what the resistance is. So if I drop it to say 100, I'll flip up to 100 for a second, and then I'm going to flip the 240 and 10 down. You can see the light starts to flash immediately. So 100 ohms resistance is not enough to stop the light from flashing. So if you put thermistors in your system, you're going to want at least more than 100 for sure. 100 is not going to cut it at normal operating temperatures. That's a trick because thermistors are by nature temperature sensitive. So if I switch it back to 250 and then start the timer so we don't wait forever. There you go, you can see the light stop flashing there. So that is indicating that 250 is a good number for the resistance to be at. I actually couldn't find 500 ohm resistors to replicate his setup exactly. I got 100 ohm resistors. The internet indicates, and actually Brian mentioned this in the beginning of his video too, you can do them in series. So that's what I have started here on mine. I'll take you over to the bench in a second and show you how this kind of can work. But if you hook one leg straight to the other, instead of the way Brian had them, ground off one side, run it through one thermistor, connect it to the next one, etc., one in the upper position, one in the lower position, then you can achieve the same type of results. So in my case, I've determined that 200 should be sufficient. This is a little bit of a question. I couldn't get 250s. I would have liked 250, and maybe I'll order some of those up from for ridiculous shipping. That's the main problem. I didn't want to pay $15 in shipping for $3 worth of parts. These I got from DigiKey for not very much money and not very much shipping. So I'll link to the part that I have exactly. But the other part of the question is whether or not the maximum gasoline temperature on a hot sunny day in the summer is going to influence the resistance. If it's going to cause the resistance to drop too low, then I don't know. Maybe my light will come on early because I don't have as much resistance in the system as I should. If that happens, I'll have to take it apart and fix her up again. But for now, I'm going to use these two resistors in series. I've determined here in Minnesota in the cold weather, right now it's like 40 degrees in my garage, the resistance, and I'll show you here over on the bench, the resistance is pretty high, way more than 100 each, so way more than 200 in series. So I'm hopeful that most gasoline won't be 90 or 100 degrees just sitting in the tank most of the time, and that these things will be below the temperature will be below their 77 degrees normal range, so they'll have more than 200 ohms resistance. All right, I'll head over to the workbench for this. All right, if you guys have made it this far, you're probably pretty interested in learning how this stuff works. So I'm gonna go into just a little bit of detail, and I'm no expert, but this is what I've gleaned off the internet. These thermistors, these are NTC, negative temperature coefficient thermistors. I got my multimeter here. Switch to auto ranging, resistance, ohms resistance. So if I put the black on the, it doesn't matter the color. If you put one on the ground, the stock, and one on the first, let's just do one thermistor, right? You can see here that auto ranges, but it switches up to 162. It's a 100 ohm thermistor, but in this temperature, it's 160 basically, 159, 160, whatever. If I go to the next one up, so that's putting two in a row, you can see it goes to just over 300, or 0.3 kilo ohms, 300 ohms. If I do the bottom set, it's the same. $145, 140, and then 280. All right, that's in the air temperature, right? So that's dry, I guess you'd say, at, like I said, about 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Instead of the 77 is the spec. So if you did this in your house at 70, 75 degrees, it would be 100 ohms resistance in each one. But when you hook them in series like this, I mean, see that pretty well. Pretty straightforward. They add together. So nothing to it. I think what I'll do next is just do a little connection here, and then I'll set up a little dip test and finish this up. Pretty straightforward, actually. Once you know about the oil pressure lead light, that's about the only trick of this whole process. If you know how to do a little soldering, not too serious. I just went straight to the stock with some rosin core solder. Seems very well attached. I'm gonna hook this one down below to the stem, and I'm gonna hook this other one to the wire, and then we'll set up a little dip test. Sorry, there doesn't seem to be much of a way to give you a good view. My hand's kind of in the way. We'll just have to imagine how cool this is. Micro welding, I call it. A little bit trickier because it's not really my style to do flat surface stuff, but it's alright. If it's sturdy, it'll work. I just twisted the top one. I'll maybe regret that when I'm manipulating it in a few minutes, but the bottom one is well attached. Lower sensor. All right. Back to the bike. All right, well, let's swap out the resistance substitution box with a little bit of rubbing alcohol. Plenty cold. I don't know if that's good or bad. Probably bad. Actually, I wish I just don't know enough about gasoline's temperature properties to be confident in what I'm doing here, but I do know the electronics part is going to be fine. It's just a matter of whether or not there's enough resistance in the circuit. So I'm going to plug back in the connector. Nothing to it. I've got my thermistors here. Two different sort of groups. Close enough together, hopefully, that I can adequately dip them. Alright. I'm going to go ahead and put them in the rubbing alcohol first. If you're anything like me, dipping electronics in gasoline first makes me super nervous, but I'll get to that point, I guess. Alright. No activity. I guess that's good, right? That is good. What we really need, though, is to see if I remove the upper position from the fluid. I want to see how long, or not, it doesn't really matter how long it takes. We just need it to come on as it warms up. The thermistors warm up. We need the light to flash. There you go. There you have it. As the alcohol evaporated, I did dry it off a little bit with my hand because I don't want to wait all day. Do the bottom ones too. Take them both out. The light should go solid once the bottom ones warm up enough and the resistance drops. Alright, light is solid. So I think that's good, indicating that the connections were made. Resistance drops as the thermistors warm up. I'm going to put the bottom position thermistors back in the fluid. This will take a little bit of time for them to I'll just time the whole thing here. It'll take a little time for them to cool off in addition to the built-in 30-second delay that we saw earlier. So there's really not a guarantee for when the light will switch to flashing instead of being solid. We'll give it maybe a minute at the most and then wonder about our science. Oh, there we go. It was actually cooled off pretty quickly. Alright, so that was 30 seconds and it started to flash. So the thermistors cooled off and the resistance increased. As we've learned, I'm going to go ahead and put all 4 thermistors back in the fluid. And then start the timer just so we have a reference here. Yeah, there you go. Those cooled off pretty fast. Alright, so let's take them out and set them here for a second while I talk, but without any manipulation of the fluid, let's just see how long it takes for them to dry off and fire. All right. Well, there you have it. I guess the main takeaways are to make sure you disconnect this oil pressure lead if you can't get it to the dash light to turn off at all. You want to check at the connector. It's safe. You can just stick something metal in there at the connector and make sure that when you jumper both sides, one side after the other, the red side gets you the flashing light, the green side, in addition to the red side, gets you the solid light. And then you get your thermistors soldered in and positioned in a fashion that you feel is appropriate for the levels that you want to test. And there's sharp edges and things. I guess you should be careful with how you hook your wires up to them so they don't chafe through. Because if they did, your light would stay on all the time. It would effectively be grounding it straight away. But yeah, overall, pretty straightforward. Hit me up if you have any comments or questions or thoughts, concerns. Just make sure to take it kind of one step at a time. Test your way through the process. You don't want to just jump to conclusions. Maybe your bulb is burned out, and if you take apart your thermistor, that looks okay. It's counterproductive. Or if you take apart your dashboard to get at the bulb before you check your thermistors, and you look in your gas tank, and those things are rattling around in the bottom of your gas tank, obviously the bulb's not the problem. So there is a bit of prep work to do if you want to get into the gas tank, but the YouTube will help you with that. No problem at all. The main thing is you don't want to do it on a full tank of gas. You're going to have to find a spot to put your gas tank, obviously, so clear a safe space for it. If it's not scratched up already, if it's beat up, you set it wherever you want. But if it looks good, you want to put it someplace soft and safe. You're taking the gas sensor out of the bottom of the tank, so you'll need to lay it on its side, I guess, at the very least, maybe on its top. It's really easy to get the gas tank off. You can find YouTube videos for that. Basically, 2 screws in the front, prop it up, disconnect the connector that we're just working with here, and also the vacuum line, the fuel line from the petcock. And then there's 2 screws at the hinge point you want to take off, unscrew, and then you'll just lift the tank up. Oh, there's a rain hose drain under there too. You don't want to forget to unhook that while you have your hands available. And make sure to put it all back together in the reverse order. Nothing too serious, nothing too hard. So good luck if you tackle it. Thanks for watching.